Hello and welcome to the show. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's episode. Today's show was a real treat for me. I got to interview the author who probably changed it all for me. When I saw her on Oprah and got her book and read her book, I know my life had shifted and I was looking at things very differently. And it brings me back to, because this is a long time ago, it was over 20 years ago, but wanting to have her on the show, wanting to connect, have this conversation also reminds me of my job in the world and how when I selfishly put this show out to talk about law of attraction, to talk about being responsible for your emotions and your feelings and your vibration, your frequency, and learning how to problem solve yourself and get your needs met and really try to empower those that were looking for relief and hope, just like I was doing at the time, I take for granted the impact that the show makes as well. And I want to start off by reading a fan letter that I got a couple days ago. And I asked him if I could read it. And of course, he said yes, and that I could use his name. And the reason why I'm wanting to share this with you is because I'm about to move into some new areas, and there will be an invitation for you to join me in many of them. Some of them will be in ways that will better not only you, but your family and those around you. And some of them will be ways in which you can contribute to making a bigger difference on the planet and with helping others, people that you don't know. And they're going to come in the next 6 to 9 months, these different invitations. And just notice in your body when you hear one, if it feels right for you. And I hope that you'll join me on one of these different journeys. This show has definitely allowed me to express, to process, to share, to explore all kinds of things and to touch lives that I didn't even know that I would be doing. And for that, I am truly grateful. So I got this on Tuesday, November 5th. Good day. I have so much to say. I just yesterday discovered your Spirit, Purpose, and Energy podcast. Recently, I've been reawakened and I felt the need to listen to something relating more to spirituality and energistics. Typically, I find myself listening to Dungeons and Dragons podcasts or game development podcasts, but I've been feeling that that's pulling me away. For years, I've been struggling to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I started listening to your podcast with the Hero's Journey episode, and it really resonated with me. I felt a call many years ago to be an influencer in the realm of spirit and magic, but I have been very stubbornly refusing it. Recently, the spirits have reached out to me through new people in my life who have the gift of being a messenger. I have been made to face that there is a part of me that I have been actively, unknowingly suppressing, and that is a big part of why I feel so unsatisfied with life. I find myself sitting adrift in a boat with no sail, on the ocean with no land in sight, and a clouded sky. Which way do I go? What's the next step? This is the junction that I met you at. I asked for guidance, and you arrived. I've gone back to the beginning of your podcast and have started listening to the first 5 episodes or so. I haven't been counting. I have the luxury of being able to do this in my warehouse job, and I feel like I'm coming to life. I'm being reminded of things I knew and being guided towards new things to learn. I'm in love with your podcast. Anyway, I thought I'd reach out to say hi and share a little of who I am and what your podcast means to me. I don't usually take up that particular invite when it's issued by podcasters, but I feel so strongly about yours that I absolutely had to reach out. I hope all is well, and I'm certainly wishing you the best. Thanks for being my beacon on the lonely sea. Charlie Griffin. And then Charlie wrote back when I asked him if I could share this, and he said, wow, yes, for sure. You're welcome to use my name too. Thank you for the privilege. I have to say the impact that your show has been on me is profound. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was saying that I hate my job and that I'm trapped. If I didn't have to support my family, then I would quit in an instant. But the last couple of days, listening to your podcast, I've been so uplifted. My language has become more positive and I feel more compassionate. I've also been moved to start processing resentments that I've been holding on to that I didn't even realize I had. I really can't say enough positive about you and your show. I truly appreciate you giving this gift to the world. Be blessed and continue to bless others. Thank you, Charlie. It meant a lot to me to get this. because it's nice to know that you listened to the show one day and you were so moved that you wrote to me the next day. I feel the same way about the guest that we're having on today, Dr. Chérie Carter-Scott. When I first saw her on Oprah and read her book and the 10 rules for being human, which, by the way, today's episode, we actually don't even cover the 10 rules for being human. So I will do a solo episode covering the 10 rules of being human. Now, you are welcome to buy the audiobook. You're welcome to buy the hardcover book or the softcover book of Life is a Game, These Are the Rules. In fact, I would highly encourage you to do so. But if you want to hear my take or a shortened version of the 10 rules for being human out of the book, I will be doing a solo episode that will reside in the Inner Circle membership. The Inner Circle membership will be a place where we are going to have 3 to 4 or 5, because I'm starting to get on a roll with all the different content I'm going to put there, episodes a month separate from the podcast. There is a fee. It will be $9.99 a month. What will also be included in that Inner Circle membership is a once a month live coaching session with me. It's a group coaching session, and it will change time zones so I can make sure to get everybody. There'll also be a private Facebook group, and you will also get 3 Inner Circle membership only 30-day manifestation challenges. What that allows us to do is to come together a little bit more intimately as a community and have more live coaching during the manifestation challenge. There still will be 2 free ones in a year, but there will be 3 just for the Inner Circle members. And again, all of this for $9.99, and it will launch December 1st. So coming December 1st, you will have access to the 10 rules for being human by JJ Flazanes, inspired by Dr. Chérie Carter-Scott, and basically it's her information, but I'm going to go over it with you. So Dr. Carter-Scott has been a frequent guest on Oprah and has appeared on numerous international media tours that include The Today Show, CNN, and dozens of TV, radio, and print outlets. Not only is she a media personality who has worked on 5 continents and in more than 30 countries, she currently trains and licenses coaches in Europe, Asia, and North America. Chérie Carter-Scott, PhD, is the CEO of MMS Institute, a boutique firm which specializes in custom design, personal development, and professional training programs conducted by her team of highly skilled coaches. She has worked with her clients in the areas of coaching, mentoring, and coaching supervision, and is currently being trained by the ICF headquarters to be one of their 100 preeminent assessors worldwide. She is a subject matter expert in motivation, self-esteem, customer relations, change management, communication skills, team building, coaching, mentoring, customer service, change management, negaholics, overcoming negativity, and leadership training. Dr. Chérie has 45 years in the coaching industry, literally has probably started the coaching industry, and you can find out more about her and all of her books, many of her books, at drcherie.com. That's CHERIE.com. If you are watching today's episode on video, you will see how I am so excited and beaming of excitement because I have on I'm going to say you were the first person, Dr. Chérie, who woke me up. I believe it was back in 1997 that I saw you on Oprah when If Life is a Game came out, or when you at least appeared on Oprah Winfrey's show. I want everyone to just take a second because you've heard this in the intro if you're listening to this on the podcast, but I definitely want you to come check out the video when it's up on jjflazanes.tv because this woman has made more change in the coaching industry and in consciousness, in my opinion, than anyone else because just from the time everyone that I know that I gave a book to, friends, clients, relatives, then the ones that did get it and are now awake in the world have given that forward, have paid that forward and bought other books of yours and have moved on to increasing their awareness. So thank you so much for taking the time out to be on the show today, because if of all the books that I have like in front of me, of all the people whose lives have and books and work has affected me, yours definitely started me being awake in the world. So thank you.
I am so delighted to be on your show and honored. And I feel very touched with your really kind and generous words.
You were very kind enough to endorse one of my very first books, Fit to Love. And so I do appreciate that you took the time to do that as well. Because like I've said, we're going to start with back in 1997. Now, is that when If Love is a Game was published or just when you got on Oprah?
Actually, it was September the 11th that the show was shot in 1998. And then it was aired on the 14th, I believe. And then everything went crazy, absolutely crazy, when Oprah held the book up and said, we need this book in every home in America. And the book hadn't been published yet. That was the weird thing. It hadn't hit the stands. And so Random House was moving heaven and earth to get the presses running 24/7, because in the first, I think, 6 days or 5 days after Oprah, there were like 650,000 books that were sold, and there were no books to be had. I'll tell you a funny story about that, which is that my publisher was Random House, and Random House was busy trying to, get publicity, as all the publishers are when they have a new book come out. And so they're, beating the bushes. And Donna, who was my very dear publicist and dear friend, she said, this is great. And I think the Oprah Winfrey Show wants to do it, but they might have a story breaking and they're not really committed, but they think it's interesting and they really like it. But, it's like maybe, but. So back and forth. And all of a sudden, it's Labor Day weekend. It is Thursday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Labor Day weekend. Well, in New York City, there is not a living, breathing soul at their office if there are anything beyond the mailroom. So I get this message from Oprah's office that says to me, can you overnight 30 books to the Oprah Winfrey Show by tomorrow? Now, I answer the message with a absolutely, can do, no problem, I'm on it. Now, you have to realize the books haven't been printed yet. And I'm thinking, I've just lost my mind. I've made a promise that I can't deliver. I have promised something that is totally impossible. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I call Donna, voicemail. I leave her a message. Critical, get back to me. It's really important. I've done something really terrible. Need you. So she calls me back within the hour. She said, what happened? And I said, I made a promise to Oprah and her staff that I can't possibly deliver. She said, oh, that's serious. I said, what do we do? Can you help me? What do we do? She said, let me get on it. Donna Gould is one of the most brilliant people in the world. She's retired now. Otherwise, I would refer her to everybody because she's so gifted. She calls me back within the hour and she said, it's handled. Sleep well. It was only later that I found out that she moved heaven and earth to find books, to uncover them. I don't know if she sent a Black Ops team to Random House to go through the basement. I don't know what she did. Or she ripped them off the printing press, but she got those 30 books to Oprah's the next morning, FedExed. It was unbelievable. I mean, real stealth. I still to this day am in awe because I know we don't do anything alone. We really rely on people around us who are our support network to be able to help us when we do something really stupid. We make a commitment we can't possibly deliver. When we, have egg all over our faces. That was Donna. She rescued me that day from the tragedy I created.
Well, it was your intuition that said yes, and then it was your trust and divine timing to make that happen. And I know I'm thankful that it did, because I know I didn't realize it was 1998, because then you must have come out with If Love Is a Game in 99, because
Yes.
I was on that list
Yes.
right away before it came out. I purchased it before it came out because a client of mine and I had watched the show when you were doing If Life Is a Game. And then I again shared it with my roommate. And then between he and I, we were like ready. In fact, I probably bought a whole stack of books before you even had it come out. So I've done an entire show in the first 10 to 20 episodes of the Fit to Love podcast years ago, 2014. I did a show specifically on If Love Is a Game. And today I want to talk about, besides what's happened in the last, 20 years, 25 years, with coaching with you, I want to talk about If Life Is a Game, because that was the book that woke me up. And that was a book that I would hope would wake up a lot more people, especially in my sphere of influence at the time, especially everyone is a mirror to you, one of the 10 rules of being human. So which I have the poster you sent me right here. Thank you. I love it. And I want to go over it because, again, those that are listening to me, they're pretty much awake on this show. But I want to take that to the next level and simplify it, because I think that's what this book did, was really simplify deeper truths into easy to understand and easy to remember themes. And I love your writing style. It's very conversational. You're telling stories, which is really easy to remember. And it's so fast and easy to read. The books are a pleasure to read, and they're super impactful, even though that they seem like this is really easy. Oh, I get that. But if you really think about the concepts, they could be life-changing.
The way I have framed my particular place in the world is to build the bridge between mainstream and metaphysics
I like it.
so that you can walk the mainstream path or you can walk metaphysics, but there's a place in between the two where we intersect as humans. And that's what I want to do is I want to help people walk over the bridge to be able to learn the lessons that we're all here to learn if we're actually called humans. We have a lot of similarities. We can focus on our differences, but actually we have a lot of lessons that we learn that are just about being human.
And that's what the book is, The 10 Rules for Being Human. Let's talk about, I remember the story of you got a download, right? Is that what happened with how you just sort of got these 10 rules and you didn't know what to do with it, so you wrote a book?
Well, it was funny because I was, I'm what they call an unconscious competent. So I was born with certain capabilities, and I don't like to compare myself to famous and brilliant and gifted people, but at least it's a brand name. If we talk about Mozart, he was able to play music without having a lesson. It came to him. It just was there. I came to coaching because I was curious and because I was convinced that I didn't know anything. And I certainly didn't know it was best for anybody else. And so what happened to me is that people started noticing that I was curious and I asked really good questions. And because I asked really good questions, people said, could you ask me those questions that you ask? Now, I was happy to ask them the questions, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the value I was bringing. I just knew that I was curious and I knew I didn't know. And I was willing for the person to find their own core of natural knowing, their own truth. And so that started on a kind of regular basis. And the first guy who said, could you ask me those questions? I said, sure, let's sit down and I'll do it. And then he left shiny, like he discovered or saw something or like he was bigger. And then he started telling people about his friend who asked these great questions, and people started calling and the phone started just ringing like crazy. I thought, what do I do? I'm just asking questions. Can I hurt anybody? Can I damage anybody? Can I get in trouble? So I talked to a friend of mine in Berkeley, and I said, he was a psychiatrist. And I said, could I get in trouble? And he said, are you prescribing? And I said, no. He said, are you advising? I said, no. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm just asking questions, kind of curious, innocent questions. He said, you're fine. Don't worry about it. You're just fine. And that was a real gift to me because then it really set me on the right track that I wasn't going to hurt anybody because the last thing I wanted to do was to damage somebody. So what happened is then people started coming to me, clients saying, can you train me? Can you teach me to do that thing that you do? Those questions you ask, can you teach me? And I said, I don't know. I don't know if I can. We can try. So it was a conversation again with my colleagues who were around me saying, we'll watch you, we'll listen to you, we'll notice what you're doing, and then we'll see if we could put it into a frame so it's replicatable. And I said, that's great. Perfect. So that's what we started doing. And it was my colleague, Carol, who turned to me and she said, being human is not so easy. And I said, no, it isn't. She said, well, don't you think we need something to help us? And I said, yeah, like the rules for being human. And she said, yeah, where would you start? And I said, well, I'd start with the body because everybody I know has one. She said, okay, and then where? And she was just asking the questions and they just cascaded themselves onto the paper. Very pure, very simple, very honest. And I said, I think these are things that we can all agree to. These are probably universal truths for all of us who call ourselves human. We both agreed. And we said, let's do this. So the rules for being human were included in our very first coach training manual. They got circulated by people who copied them and passed them on to friends and family and said, I love these. But my name got detached from them. 20 years later, 1994, in the first Chicken Soup for the Soul book on page 81 were the rules for being human by Anonymous. Now, this is not a one-time thing. This is kind of a theme of my life. And part of it, I believe, in my honesty, is that it's not about me and it's not about my ego. And it's usually about you or somebody else like Dan Millman at the time, who called me and said, "Didn't you write these rules?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, don't you think it's time you got credit?" And I said, "Well, I didn't write them to get credit." And he said, "Knock it off. I think it's time you got credit. And I'm going to call Jack and tell him." So he called Jack Canfield and said, "Chérie wrote these and you should give her credit." The next printing, Jack gave me credit. But it's that funny place between kind of humility, maybe insecurity, maybe the desire not to brag about yourself, maybe that's ingrained somewhere. But it's like I really honestly did not write the rules to say, "I wrote the rules, I wrote the rules." It was like, I wrote them and they're wonderful and they're lovely and they're pure, but I never felt ownership of them. I really felt like I was used by a higher power to bring those rules to people. So that's that place of not feeling like I did it, but I was the vehicle that they came through. And that's always been something I've wrestled with for most of my life. When people say, "Aren't you proud?" Well, I don't know if I'm proud. I feel like I'm in alignment with my higher self, but I don't know if I'm proud.
Well, you were given the gift to share it with others and without you writing it. So that's a long time between the time you wrote the book then. So what were you doing when you developed this coaching? Like, what was your life path before you started asking good questions and people wanted you to ask them more good questions?
Okay, so I was born as a child, and all of us were, but I was born as a child that was a disappointment. So when I arrived on the scene, and I only found this out many, many decades later, my parents were disappointed because they had two little girls and they were expecting a little Milton to name it after my dad and to be the boy. Well, I wasn't the boy. And a few years later, my little brother was born, but he was stillborn. So I actually became kind of the boy that they always wanted, even though I was a girl. So my father did a lot of the raising of me, and he was my role model much more than my mother. So those early years, I kept trying to figure out, who was I? Was I a girl? Was I a boy? I'm my father's son, but I'm really a girl. And yet I'm really not sure who I am or what I'm doing here. So I was kind of figuring that out from a very young age. Also, I was raised in an alcoholic home, which created its own challenges. And the way I coped with it was I disconnected. I knew there was a lot of craziness going on. And I thought, if I'm going to stay sane, I have to be able to find me and to be able to not be a part of the craziness. I knew that at 4 years old. I knew it. And so what I did is I created my own little world, my own fantasy world, my own world of make-believe. I created my own coping mechanisms. When I was distressed and nobody understood me, I'd go out and talk to my horse. There were things that I did that allowed me to survive the insanity of an alcoholic home and to be able to leave when it was time to leave without creating too much damage. Now, in those years, when I was 6, a nun said to me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I looked at her with all my simplicity of a 6-year-old, and I looked way up at her because she was tall, and I said, "I want to be a priest." She looked down at me and she said, "No, you don't." And I said, "Oh, I do." And she said, "No, you don't. And God doesn't want you to either." And I thought, how do you know? But I didn't say that. I just kind of thought, suck it up, behave yourself. And she said, "You could be a nun, but you can't be a priest." And that was the first message I'd had that said to me, what you want is unacceptable. What you want is off limits. What you want is the wrong answer. So a year later, I remember my mother asked me the same question. She said, "Chérie, what would you like to be when you grow up?" And I thought, I'm not going to say priest, that's for sure. Smart little child. And I thought, what's second best to priest? I said, I know. I want to be an actress. And she said, "No, you don't." And I said, oh God, here we go again. So I looked at her and I said, "What should I want to be?" And she looked at me and she said, "You should become a teacher. So if your husband dies, you can support your children." Okay, so here I've got 2 messages back to back. The first message at 6 is, you're a girl and you can't be what you want to be because it's not allowed. God knows why. But I wasn't that boy that I was supposed to be, but I'm a girl. Okay, deal with it. Second message, a year later, my mother's message to me is, you don't want to be an actress. As a matter of fact, your answers are wrong. And I'm going to give you the right answer that you're going to have. That's your golden passport. So when anybody asks you what you want to be, you can say, I want to be a teacher. So if my husband dies, I can support my children. And that was the right answer for the next 12 years. Now, was it my answer? Not exactly. It was my mother's answer, but it got me through a lot of embarrassing situations until she died. She died when I was 20. Now, when she died, I thought, what am I supposed to do in life, in the world? Well, I mean, what can I do? What do I have to offer? My mother's not here. She told me I was supposed to be a teacher. Maybe I should go become a teacher. Well, I got my teacher training in college, and well, I could become a teacher, so I became a teacher. Wasn't exactly it. I felt like I was more of a policeman in the classroom than a teacher. So then, after my mother died, I became an actress because she did say the words over my dead body. And I didn't want to take her literally, but I went back to New York, and somebody I'd worked with in summer stock gave me an opportunity to work in the New York Public Theater under Joe Papp and get my equity card and become an actress. And then one day I woke up and I had this incredible moment of defining moment. And it said, your work is to give back. It's not about you. So as an actress, it was about me. It was my headshot. It was my resume. It was my acting. It was my performance. It was people loving me. It was all about me. But when I heard, it's not about you, it's about giving back, then I had to look and see what I had to offer. What could I contribute? And I was, at that place called, I don't know. I just don't know what I have to offer. I mean, I really don't. I wasn't a priest. I couldn't become a priest. Actress wasn't it. Teacher didn't seem to be it. And I didn't have any other resources. So I started asking everybody I knew what they thought. Tell me what you think. What should I become? What should I do with my life? And they said, real estate broker. Maybe you should go into law. Maybe you should become a doctor. Maybe you should sell vitamins. I mean, they had 92 different answers for me. And none of them really resonated or connected with me. And I thought, oh, this is really hard. What am I doing here? What's my purpose in life? I watched my mother drank herself to death, and I don't want to do that. But what I really want is to be able to fulfill my destiny and find my purpose. And that's when I started getting messages, and my messages were, number one, you are a catalyst. I thought, catalyst. I'm not really sure what catalyst means. I don't actually use that word very much, but it sounds good. Okay. Second message, you are to work in growth and development. I knew what that was. That was clear to me. Third message, you have a gift for working with people. Okay, so I'm a catalyst who works with people on their growth and development. Now, do I put that on a business card? I'm a catalyst. I work with people. No, sounds really weird. Do I say that at networking meetings? Hi, I'm a catalyst, and I help you with your growth and development. That's strange also. What do I do with that? I don't know what to do. I mean, you gave me a purpose that wasn't a burning bush, but it was like this purpose that I don't know what to do with. And then I got the phone call from my friend who said, will you help me figure out what I'm doing with my business? And I said, well, I don't know anything. And he said, that would be helpful. I said, you're going to pay me knowing full well that I don't know anything? And he said, yes, I will. And I said, I accept. He was my first client.
Good for you to say I accept and not say, no, thank you. I don't know what I'm doing, because that's what most people do. So great way to receive and be an example of receiving. So when that was, I mean, you said 20 years later after you had written the rules is when, right?
It was 1974 when actually Lloyd contacted me and said, help me with my business. And I thought, moi? Are you kidding? So that was the beginning.
That was a very long journey of I'm writing the rules, and then the rules became a book.
Yeah, it was a journey. And I never thought of them as being a book until after Jack published them in 94 in Chicken Soup. And then 30 people contacted me and said, could I use your rules as an outline skeleton for the book I want to write? Now, sometimes I'm a little slow. I admit it. I really am. I don't get the blinding flash of the obvious. And so these 30 people, I thought, well, needs to be somebody who can write well, needs to be somebody who gets what the rules are all about, has really good stories, Maybe they have a tone with which they connect with the writer. So it's not condescending, and it's really pure. And I started going through this whole criteria of the person and interviewing these different people. And then it came to me like this light. You're to write the book. And I thought, me? And then I felt really, really humble. Like, do I have enough wisdom to write this book that's to be written from these rules? Am I enough? And so when I put together the book proposal and we submitted it, and then, they went back and forth with the agents, back and forth. And then finally they submitted it, and they did an auction for the book. And I felt really honored and humbled, like, this is my book that I'm supposed to write. And then I just started praying and saying, I need a lot of help writing this book, because I feel like it's stretching me to a new dimension of myself. And it's a real privilege.
Now, you had written Negaholics before this, hadn't you?
Yeah, I had written The New Species was my first book that I wrote in 1977. I thought it'd be the only book I ever wrote. Then after The New Species came Negaholics, Corporate Negs, and then Interview, A Woman's Daily Journal. And then came If Life is a Game.
That's your fifth?
Yeah.
Wow. The fifth, but probably the most impactful, yes?
Well, that's what people say, in terms of people's feedback about the book, because it's so non-prescriptive. It's so non-denominational. It doesn't have an agenda to speak. It's very open and fluid. So the funny thing that started happening as soon as I wrote the book and people started reading it is that they would say, well, what's your religion? And I'd say, well, I'd rather not say. And they say, well, you're a Buddhist, aren't you? And I'd say, hey, that would be a good thing to assume. And then the next person would call and say, what's your religion? I say, well, I'd prefer not to say. And they say, oh, you're Christian, aren't you? I say, if that's what you would like to say. Oh, it's throughout the book. I see it everywhere. Okay. The next person, and it just kept happening with these different religions contacting me about me being a member of their group. It's fascinating.
And I'm not going to ask you because it doesn't matter, right? Because it doesn't matter. You mentioned at the beginning here being the bridge between mainstream and metaphysics. That's all there is. And everything is really just the interpretation and the way people want to lay things out. So it doesn't even matter. But I think it's amazing because then that meant that they got value from the book and value from the lessons, and that it didn't disrupt their teachings or belief system, and they felt like it fit right in, and it's a way to connect. So that was a great way for everyone to connect. And again, the book that we're talking about is If Life is a Game, These Are the Rules. And it was definitely the first book that woke me up to, even before If Love is a Game, because I used that book and talked about that book and bought it for everybody. And just, my lists, I coach people to make their own lists. And of course, later in life, I then was on to the next level with Abraham. But your book literally started the whole thing because I was living in New York City at the time, and I hadn't really thought about life that way. I know that I definitely had a victim mentality more than I do now. I didn't even know what that term meant, but your book started to help bring me and pull me out of that, and to look at life as anything that's happening to me is a mirror of me. And just that concept alone, again, and I thought, geez, if everybody just knew that one concept, like we would be able to have better conversations about why. Like I just recorded a show about intuition and business growth and talked about asking the question when I was younger, because I also was an actress, but even before that, just asking myself as a teenager, why do I feel this way? Why did I interpret it that way? Why am I reacting this way? What happened? Like I just being reflective on my behavior. And I know for a lot of people, they're just in their behavior. And so I feel like your book started this whole wave of consciousness. And I know you're known as the mother of coaching. And so I want to talk a little bit about what's happened in the last 25 years since that book came out, and since your coaching practice and you developed coaching and the movie and your relationship with Jack Canfield and everything. It's just been massive.
Yeah, it has been. And the funny thing is that it's like this invitation. I've constantly been put on the stage or in the show, in the movie, in the something, and I'm not bad at it. I'm not bad at media appearances, but it's not something I crave. I don't crave the attention. And so when I had written If Life is a Game, and I had been on Oprah and the Today Show and CNN and people started noticing me and recognizing me in various different places. And it was uncomfortable for me. It wasn't like I loved it. Oh, yes, here I am. And yes, I did. And let me sign your book. It was a very uncomfortable thing. As a matter of fact, one time my husband, who was a speakers bureau agent in business for himself for 22 years, and we would go to events that he would put on, like he had an event for a client with the Temptations in Chicago. And so I was going as Mrs. Michael. I wasn't going as me. I was kind of undercover. And we were in the lobby meeting the people who were putting on the event. And the meeting planner looks at me and she goes, "I know you." And I said, "Well, I just have one of those faces, it looks like a lot of people." She said, no, I know you. I'll figure it out. So a few minutes go by, and all of a sudden she comes over, she goes, "I know where I know you from. It was the Oprah show." And she starts screaming in the lobby. And she said, "You were on Oprah, you were." And I thought, this is not what I signed up for. I'm being Mrs. Michael here. I'm not being me. And we're trying to be undercover, and she's going crazy. And those events I found unsettling. I didn't find them like, "Isn't it great?" I just found them unsettling because I didn't quite know how to respond in a graceful, gracious manner. So I would kind of, I didn't get a big nose and glasses and fuzzy hair, but I actually was kind of, how do I, navigate around the board game of life without having these incidents happen? Because that was a kind of a turnoff, to be quite honest.
Well, but you kept writing. So, because next came If Love is a Game, and then you've continued to be out in the world. So, and there's nothing, you have a message and you have a mission. And I know one of the questions you wanted me to ask you today is what your purpose in life is. And obviously your purpose in life, as you said, is like you said, the bridge. But is there another answer to that?
Yeah, absolutely. There could be 20 answers, but really my answer is to be able, as you say, to help people wake up in a gentle way, to wake up to the realities of what they're here to do, their gifts, their contribution, their purpose in life. And my other real purpose is to train the very best coaches on earth, who have that pure intention and that willingness to lift people up to that place where they shine. So that's what really makes my heart sing more than anything.
When did you develop the coaching program?
1974.
Oh, that you were coaching other people?
Yeah.
And has that business just continued to grow with every book, with every appearance, with every...
It's a little bit like if you look at a bar graph, like the first thing that I started doing was coaching Lloyd and all these people who started coming to me. And then they started saying, "Can you teach me how to do that?" And it was like, we'll figure it out. So then we started putting together like a beta program, testing it out, seeing what worked. And there were 18 people who were willing for me to kind of experiment on them to see if they could quiet the voices of their minds, connect with their essential selves, be fully present for another person, set their judgments aside, and allow that person to discover and uncover their truth. And that was the process that we went through of designing the MMS coach training back in 1974. So I had several people who had volunteered as my guinea pigs. And then in 75, and then it started just evolving, and people telling their friends, "There's this program." And I learned to quiet the voices in my head. This program, and I'm learning to, la, la, la. But it was all very much confidential, private, behind the scenes, in small groups of 20 or less, to be able to do the magic. And in those days, in the early days, it was not even called coaching. We didn't know what to call it. It was kind of like Chérie does her magic. People didn't know what to call it. So people would come to me and they'd say, "Can you do your magic?" And I said, well, we'll see. And consistently, people kept leaving my office with that look of, like, I took Windex and polished their souls, and they were shining. And it was really cool. But I, as I said before, I was an unconscious competent. I didn't know what I was doing right. But when the people started studying me, Carol and Kathy and Linda, they started studying what I was doing, and they said, oh, this is what you're doing. You're suspending judgment. Oh, what you're doing is creating a safe environment. That emotional safety that you provide creates an opportunity for somebody to say anything, their heart's desires, their wishes, their hopes, their dreams. Oh, and so they started actually mechanistically identifying what I was doing that I wasn't aware that I was doing, but was doing intuitively.
It's brilliant. I know you're a Gemini. Do you know your moon sign by chance?
Cancer.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's great. Yes. So that's the mothering. That was the safe space. That's the tell me all your problems. Let me hug you energetically and allow you that safe space. Okay. Well, that makes sense. I just really appreciate the simplicity and the heart that comes along with what it is that you do, and that you've started this movement of coaching, so to speak. And if you had to share with everyone listening, because this is not the end of this conversation, this is the start of our conversation, provided I can follow you around the earth to get us on the same time zone, somewhere to meet in the middle here to have another conversation, because I want to share what you're doing in the world with your happiness operating system and with the coaching and with all the books. We barely even talked about the book. I'm gonna have to do another solo show, just talk about your book. But if there was anything from that book or from the lessons that you've learned to today, what would you tell someone listening right now who is struggling in any way? Just an overview.
What I would say was, your relationship with yourself is the most significant relationship that you will ever have in this lifetime. And the way you treat yourself, the way you talk to yourself, the way you honor or care for or about yourself is so critical that maybe you want to start having a relationship with yourself by writing down your thoughts, your feelings, just to be able to notice what's going on the inner world. Because the inner world is hidden from us. And if it's hidden from you, that means you're hiding from yourself. So to be able to make the first steps into connecting with the truth about you, who you are, maybe you want to just write to yourself. Thoughts, feelings, words. Forget about the punctuation and grammar. Just write whatever's there in your heart and allow yourself to be kind and gentle and supportive of you.
Great advice for all of us, no matter where you are on the path. I think practicing gratitude and self-acknowledgement in a loving, compassionate way, and to allow ourselves that safe space to just allow whatever thoughts and feelings are coming up is perfect for everyone at all stages. So thank you for that. Now, there's so much going on. If you were to tell everyone listening how they could get more information, would you send them to drcherie.com?
drcherie.com is probably the best way. That is my website. And it's the way that people can kind of connect with what I'm up to, what I'm doing, where I am. They can get on the mailing list. They can reach out to me. Pretty much we respond to everybody who reaches out to us, because we think that that's a respectful thing to do, because people take their time, and we want to make certain that they hear from us and notice us. I mean, I have every different way that people can participate. As a matter of fact, from expensive coach trainings to free coaching sessions on Facebook, I have everything across the board depending upon the budget. So that's where we want to make certain that the work is available and accessible to people globally with whatever resources they have.
So in terms of the free resources, would they find that on drcherie.com, or where other social media platforms can we find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I think most of them. They can reach out to me on whatever they're comfortable with. But I think the key thing is making certain that they say what they want and how we can help. And then we can accommodate them. Because, I'm doing trainings like this last month. I've been doing trainings in North America, Europe, and in Asia. And we always have students who are looking for people to coach. So even if they didn't want to coach with me on FaceTime, I could turn them onto one of my students and they could do a session with them. So there's a plethora of opportunities, and you don't have to hold back if you have limited resources. You just reach out and you say, help. I need help with this. I need help with that. And there are 4 things that I say to most of my clients. I say, desire, willingness, belief, and commitment. You have to have the desire to have what you want. You have to have the willingness to do something different than what you've already done. You have to have the belief that it's possible for you to be able to have a life that you really want to be living, that you are delighted to live. And commitment is the final one. Don't give up. Hang in there.
couldn't have found a better thing to end on, a better mantra to end on. I think that was beautiful, Dr. Chérie. This was a pleasure for me, like you don't even understand. If there's anyone in your life who's touched you and changed your life the way you have mine, only say it's probably something to that effect. But I've been singing your praises for years, telling people to get these books. I would tell everyone who's listening, please, please, if you don't already have it, at least buy. Yes, reach out to Dr. Chérie at drchérie.com, and also buy If Life is a Game, These Are the Rules. It is a life-changing, very easy to read book that you can get through very quickly, and you'll be so much better off for it. Thank you for writing it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time. I hope we can continue this conversation because there's so much more to share with what it is that you're doing to impact the world and change lives, and I want to help you with that platform.
Thank you, JJ. I love being on your show, and I look forward to the next time.
Excellent.